So when we started, people were wondering, well, what is AMD going to be when they grow up? And our driving force at the time was to decide what we could be best at. And I really believed that we could be the best in high performance computing. Back in the day when I would sit with our technical fellows and we would make that big decision of, hey, are we going to bet the company's roadmap on chiplets? And we said, yes.
Lisa, I'm so glad this has worked out. I've been looking forward to this for months.
Well, thank you, Reed. It's great to be here and great to be here with you and Arya.
By the way, I think it's not only going to be 3 week, I think it's getting to 3 day and potentially even 3 hours. I mean, I think, part of your chiplet thing is exactly right. The AI revolution is how do we harness large scale compute together with large scale data, together with teams, putting that together. And that's the kind of revolution that we're in. And obviously it becomes learning machines, learning compute machines.
Yes.
So, you said the early innings of a 10-year AI supercycle. Give some more color to that. What are the things that you're seeing from the central vantage point of AMD, like coming, things that we need to navigate, et cetera?
Yeah. So I spend an enormous amount of time with, sort of customers and partners. So just understanding, what they're seeing and really understanding where the use cases are going. And I guess what I would say is as much progress has been made over the last 2 years, AI is like now part of our every day, every hour vocabulary, right? Everybody talks about it, whether you're talking about, forget tech. I mean, of course, tech, we talk about it all the time, but you think about investors, you think about people on the street, you think about everybody uses AI in their life. In my mind, it's still so early because the technology is good, but is not yet great. Now, we've seen a lot of better, right? I think it's gotten a lot better, but it's still like we can see the potential is nowhere near, where it could be. And, I view that across all application bases, right? So if you think about, sort of the evolution from large language models now to the usage of agents, and, we're all excited in companies with the idea that we're going to augment our workforce with agents that can do a lot more, let's call it collective tasks so that they're not, single task oriented things. But we're still at the very early innings of implementing these things. Where we see a lot of promise is just in building chips, for example. We think we can build much better, much faster, much more reliable, chips over time. We can apply AI to our design elements. We can apply it to our test elements. We can apply it to our quality elements. And we're just at the beginning phases, of doing that. And the cases that we see today that are probably most interesting is, we're using AI to write a ton of our software. One of the things that, people would say about, AMD is, hey, we've been a great hardware company, but there's a lot of software infrastructure on AI that's been written in CUDA and needs to be, let's call it, translated to AMD. Well, a ton of that can now be done in software. Like we're using software to significantly optimize our customers' code so that they can run on AMD, and that's just an example of the multiplicative factor of AI. So it's just still so early. Reed. From my standpoint, it's yes, you're right. I said 3 weeks. Maybe it's 3 days, but the fact is, it's getting better all of the time. We're finding new use cases. We're continuing to work up that productivity scale as we learn. The AI can really be tailored for company use cases, for personal use cases, so that it becomes more effective over time.
Sort of on that note, how AI and the sort of global geopolitics has become so important here. And you've talked about the importance of US manufacturing. Right now, we have such a reliance on Taiwan. How does this directly affect AMD's business? Like, we read about plans for you guys to begin receiving chips manufactured at TSMC's Arizona plant before the end of 2025. Like, how realistic is this shift towards national chip making?
I think it's absolutely happening, Arya. The notion that we need leading edge chip manufacturing in the US is now completely understood by everyone. Now, these things don't happen in months, they happen in years. And so we have been active in this area for the last, I would say, 3 or 4 years. But the key is it's accelerating now. Like there are more investments coming in. TSMC built their first Arizona plant a few years ago, and now they've agreed to build that out to full large-scale manufacturing, which is really good for us as a company, but really good for the country. And we're active in moving our manufacturing to the United States. It's never going to be 100%. I mean, we should be realistic, right? The supply chain for tech and semiconductors is very global. Right now, much of it goes through Asia. I think we're going to balance that a little bit with a significant portion coming back to the US, but it's not going to be 100%. We just need to make sure that there's a good balance in how we think about investments and where we put priorities.
And with this kind of long-term vision, years, cycles, how is the current volatility in global affairs, whether it's tariffs and trade policies or different stances in different countries? What do you see as critical to happen, and how are you guys navigating?
It's a great question. It has become, let's call it, a bit more volatile. We're kind of in the part of the industry where countries have significant policies, and some of those policies, like for example, China is an important market to us. We have a good portion of our revenue that goes through China, and much of that is in the consumer space, in sort of traditional computing space, which is going well. But there are certain parts of what we build, especially the highest performing AI computing that we have, that there are export control restrictions that cause us not to be able to sell to China. Look, I think there's no question that we have to protect national security, but we also want to ensure that U.S. AI technology is adopted as broadly as possible, because that is good for innovation, right? Innovation requires the more people that are building on the U.S. Ecosystem, the better, because that increases the rate and pace of innovation. So I think the answer is we navigate by making sure that we spend time with all stakeholders. So I spend a good amount of time with our Washington stakeholders, because it's really important that we are on the same page as the Department of Commerce, where a lot of these decisions get made, and that we ensure that there's a good dialogue there. But we are also a global company. We have a lot of revenue outside of the United States, and we want to make sure that the stakeholders outside of the U.S. also understand that at the end of the day, our goal is to deliver the best technology to the world.
So when I talk to my friends, especially those that aren't in technology, and if I'm talking to them about AI, chips, supply chains, like certainly geopolitics and national security comes up, but what also comes up always is environmental concerns. So can you talk about how you think about these, environmental implications of scaling up chip production and what it means for the world?
I think it's important to recognize one of the corollaries of all of this desire for compute is there's just a lot of power that's required in making sure that we're as efficient as possible, and the usage of that energy is important. From our standpoint, we are maniacal about energy efficiency. Like I think you can say that energy efficiency is as important, if not more important, than just general performance scaling, because we recognize, like, at the end of the day, there may not be enough power for all the compute that people want. And so the more energy efficient our chips are, the more computing that people can have. And I think that needs to be a first order consideration in the development processes.
And so are there specific things that AMD is doing, whether it's investing in green tech or sort of long-term big bets to accelerate that technology?
We're doing quite a bit. We were able to improve our energy efficiency by over 30x over the last 5 years. And that's not any one thing, Arya. That's like, a ton of how do we have better power management techniques? How do we have better techniques to ensure that, we have the most energy efficient chips in there? What do we do in packaging? What do we do in manufacturing? What do we do in all of those areas? And, over the next 5 years, we're doing the same thing. And the key here is we have to work across the ecosystem, because actually, as important as we think our computing is, we're just one part of the overall system, and the system requires that all of it come together. So we're working, with our partners to make sure that we are really scaling that energy efficiency.
Well, I mean, one of the things that people, frequently don't understand is these are ecosystems. And so part of what you AMD and you do is supporting a whole bunch of different startups that are also building, kind of AI infrastructure on your GPUs like Lamini. So what are some of the most promising hardware innovations you've seen lately coming out of the startup ecosystem?
Yeah, Reed, we are really, really impressed with what startups have been able to do. For a while, people were thinking that it was hard to do new things in startups because, frankly, the investment intensity is so much, right? You'd have to spend triple-digit millions before you get your first product. And I think the difference, again, this is one of the differences with AI. Yes, you do need a lot of infrastructure, and we have a very active ventures program that supports a number of different startups to get them on AMD infrastructure. But we also see is there's a tremendous amount of innovation on the model layer. And that is actually pretty exciting. We've seen, for example, Liquid.ai is one of the startups that we've spent time with. And what they're trying to do is actually reduce the amount of compute that you need to run very capable models, because this is all about how do we democratize AI. And so it shouldn't be that only the biggest companies in the world have access to AI infrastructure. You want everybody to have access to AI infrastructure. So I think the startup community has contributed a ton to the AI innovation over the last couple of years. And the key to this ecosystem is to give people access. So we have a developer cloud out there that allows people to quickly get access to our GPUs, and then really innovate on top of that.
And one of the accelerations that most people are tracking is kind of the coding acceleration.
Yeah.
And so what are some of the things that you think are currently working in the coding acceleration? And what are some of the things you think are coming?
Definitely. We are looking at the coding environment every day. And certainly for the volume code that needs to be written, our engineers are able to get a significant amount of code written through AI. We use all of the tools available out there. So, I think different tools at a different point in time have some strengths over others. But in general, I think it's a race, right? There's no one sort of magic pill. I think we have to use all the tools. Probably the place that I'm most excited about using AI is really around kernel development. So, like if you think about our GPUs, right? One of the things about GPUs is there's so many libraries that need to be written so that somebody else can use our GPUs easily. And we're actually, really doing quite a bit with having AI actually write some of the very specific optimizations to our hardware. And if you think about it, the key thing to accelerate the rate and pace of AI innovation is to make it easier to use all of the power. Because every year we come out with a new thing, but if it takes people 6 months to optimize to the new thing, then that's like lag time. And so our goal is to make it like super easy. It's still early. I wouldn't say it's perfect, but we're teaching the AI tools to really be able to optimize to our hardware.
So in this sort of new world that's changing every 3 weeks or 3 days or however quickly we're rapidly innovating, obviously one of the things that's going to keep AMD ahead is your internal employees using AI all the time. So there are specific things that you do to sort of either encourage AI adoption or just to encourage that knowledge sharing. So I feel like for so many people, it feels like, well, if I mastered it 4 weeks ago, I have to, go to college again for AI today because it's already changed so much. Like, how do you guys stay ahead of that curve?
Yeah, it's a very organic thing, Arya. So we actually have teams that are set up who are constantly looking at how we can use AI more in our internal processes. So in engineering, for example, I mentioned earlier, super important that every aspect of our chip development can be improved with AI. We're working closely with our tool vendors, Cadence, Synopsys, these guys, to ensure that we put that into the tools. We're also very much developing our own databases around our techniques for both hardware and software development so that we can accelerate on our side. And then for, let's call it the non-engineering tasks, like everything from, finance to HR to marketing to sales, all of that can be enhanced with more AI capability. And we're just learning. We're learning, sort of which tools are the best. We're experimenting a lot. And this is something that I personally review with my staff, that we are utilizing AI as broadly as possible across our business. And the key for me is, we live and learn, and continue to broaden, sort of where we can apply AI in our business.
I want to take it sort of from the technology to more focused on people. You talk a lot about talent and how important it is to take risks on talent, how people have taken risks on you. Can you say more about that? Because talent is everything. Talent is the only way we're going to succeed. So what do you mean by taking risks on talent?
Yeah, I think, again, this is all a little bit about how people grew up, right? Like I said, I grew up as a device physicist, and someone gave me an opportunity to run a business. And that took somebody taking a risk, right? I mean, who knows? Like, why should Lisa Su be able to run a business? Why should Lisa Su be able to run a company? Somebody took a risk on me. I believe, like, giving people, big, hairy challenges, and they don't always succeed. But boy, if you give them sort of the setup such that they can, really learn through that process, you build incredible talent. And, part of what I think makes AMD special, because look, for the longest time, we were the smaller guy, right?
Yeah.
Intel was 100,000 people. We were like 8,000 back in the day. And like, why would you want to be part of that 8,000 person team? Because we're going to let you work on the most exciting technology there is in the industry, and you're going to get to learn how to do that. And I think that's really, what we need to do to attract the best and the brightest minds, is to give them the opportunity and the freedom to innovate in a culture that allows that to happen. And so that's what I mean about taking chances on people. I am a big believer in your resume is important, but frankly, it's really your ideas. Like, going to school is not on the job training, right? Going to school is learning how to think. And once you learn how to think, you have to keep applying those skills every single day, because every day I learn something new. Like, I'm still learning how to think every day and applying new things. And that's kind of the environment that, that we want to build in terms of attracting and retaining the best talent. And I agree with you. It is all about talent, but it's also about talent that's dedicated to a certain mission. And, not everyone wants to be part of every mission, but if you find the right group of people, I like to say the best leaders are ones that can help a team, figure out how to do like 150% of their expectations, right? To really inspire teams to do amazing things.
Well, I completely agree on the talent side. What are some of the signals that you use for this is talent that we should take a risk on, we should take a chance on?
I like people who, obviously you have to have the basics, right? The basics are the right schooling, but I think when you see leaders who are willing to take risks, like I like to say, the person who volunteers and says, "Hey, Lisa, I think I can help on that," or when you see a problem, the person who says, "Hey, let me take that and see what I can do." Like, I love those kinds of people, because you realize that the person who's willing to kind of, the advice I give people is like, run towards the hardest problems, like volunteer for the hardest problems, because those are the ones that you're going to learn the most from. And you see talent who do that, who are, not necessarily the people that you would expect, who really like to bring, people together. And the other aspect of it is, I like people who can integrate across disciplines. All right, this idea of you're a hardware person or you're a software person. What we really like is people who know how to think, broadly in terms of solutions and can stitch all the pieces together. And so, those are some things that I like when I'm looking for talent.
Is there a movie, song, or book that fills you with optimism for the future?
I think Fei Fei Li was on your program not too long ago. I think her story and her book that she put out on AI is actually pretty inspiring. It's a nice compilation of just an incredible story and sort of optimism and pragmatism around AI.
Yeah, she was a previous guest, and no surprise, she was fantastic.
Yes.
So rapid fire number 2. What is a question that you wish people would ask you more often?
Well, I'd like to be asked what I'd like to be when I grow up. I think there's still a lot of growing up to do in our world.
You're just getting started. I love it.
Yes, you're just getting started.
That's awesome. So where do you see progress or momentum outside of your industry that inspires you?
There's so much interesting technology out there. I'm pretty inspired about some of the things that are being done in research, but I recently also saw, I spent some time with Elon on some of the progress he's making on his Optimus robots, and it's pretty cool. It's pretty cool. I mean, I think the world where robotics is, let's call it in our everyday life, there's still a lot of progress to be made, but I think it's making very rapid progress, and it's pretty exciting.
Can you leave us with a final thought on what you think is possible to achieve if everything breaks humanity's way in the next 15 years, and what's the first step to get there?
Well, I'd like to believe that over the next 10 to 15 years, we can make our quality of life in every way substantially better. So, that's in terms of health, that's in terms of productivity, that's in terms of longevity and all of those things. And I think the first step is already underway, which is, let's figure out how to use AI as aggressively as possible across, all of the health and medical fields. And I say it's along the way, but it's actually not that easy. And I think, Reed, you might agree with this. It's like right now, it's kind of still two separate worlds, right? There's the technology world and there's the medical and healthcare world. I think it's coming together. We're seeing, people look at it with a broader lens, but I think we need more of that. We need more cross-pollination of people with, different skill sets so that we can really bring the power of technology into making, our lives truly different 10 years out.
I think it fits together so well with your theme of interdisciplinary. If AI can bridge the gaps between technology and biotech, like, oh my God, what can we achieve?
Yes.
1,000%.